from off the balcony. And I felt the light tap, like somebody was tapping the back of my head, and I woke up somewhere else.
I don't know. I mean, it's really bright.
Mm-hmm.
Like really bright.
Mm-hmm. Where's the brightness coming from?
All around, really bright. I'm kind of stuck to a wall.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a wall. I can't tell.
Mm-hmm. What makes you think you're stuck to a wall?
I can't move my arms. I can move my head. I can move my body, but it's like I'm sucked or glued to the wall.
You know, you go to an amusement park and you those centrifugal force rides that spin around and you're stuck. That's what it felt like to me. But it was incredibly intense.
Something around my wrist. I'm trying to get free. I can't get free.
Mm-hmm. And is it just around your left wrist?
Yeah, it seems to be around my wrist, but I don't think that's what's holding me down.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's connected to something, but it's not holding me down.
I could move my hands. I could kind of move my hand, move my feet a little bit, but I could not get free of this wall. And when I looked, it looked like it had quarter-sized copper pieces about their space maybe a foot apart, all over the wall, just peppered the whole wall. And I had these copper bracelets on my ankles and on my wrists. And they had these tiny filaments, almost like hair-like filaments that were going to the wall. And if I wanted to, I could have snapped them, but for some reason I was stuck, so I couldn't do anything. I couldn't move.
They're turning me over. They're like turning me around. And I can't seem to move very much. And they're doing something to me.
And they turned me around and they started doing something on my back that hurt, really stung really bad, like they were cutting me or something.
They're sticking it really far in my back.
Mm-hmm. How can you tell how far it's going in?
It hurts.
Mm-hmm. So you can feel it.
Yeah, but it's weird. She puts her arm on me and then it relaxes a little bit.
And I felt another tap on the back of my head, and I woke up in the middle of the room on some kind of platform with a female standing right there. And she looked at me, tilted her head. Suddenly, an explosion of thought literally filled my head. It was so intense, it knocked me over, and I almost fell off the table. And when I came out of this shock, she stepped back. She quit doing whatever it was that she was doing. She stepped back as if to say, okay, you poor, stupid, little, insignificant thing, we're going to try this your way. Image after image, thought after thought, visualization after visualization just filled my head. It was then that I realized whatever this thing was, it was way more advanced than me.
He has that experience. He calls you up. What is that phone conversation?
Phone call was basically, I had the weirdest dream. He said, but it doesn't make sense because I have all the hairs all off my wrists and I have these sores on my back. I was trying to be the analytical one, you know. It's like there has to be a reason for it. It can't be that aliens came in and abducted you. And he's like, well, I know it was a dream. It was a dream. Aliens aren't real. And then he called me back because he's like, I'm going to go. And he called me back and he goes, it wasn't a dream. I know it wasn't a dream.
I fell apart. I started crying and shaking and freaking out. It's like, oh my God, because it made it real. It made this whole thing real. This really happened to me. You know, when Deborah took me through the regressions, I started reliving all the pain. I started vividly remembering everything, every nuance, every sound, every painful experience, everything that happened. The most profound thing that happened to me was the part that I started writing down these symbols that I had stuck in my head. She asked me, so what do you remember? I said, I have these symbols in my head. I have these weird things in my head. She goes, can you write them down? She gave me a big pad of paper and I think a marker. And I just started.
I remember the symbols really clear.
How do you, can you describe
Oh
them?
God, I could write them down for you.
Okay.
These are the images that I got in my head.
My first abduction experience really was about, I think, seeing who I was, maybe seeing how I developed. I'm not sure. The abduction experiences after that seemed to involve reproductive stuff. They're really fascinated with our reproductive abilities and fascinated with our genetics for some reason. Or maybe they're manipulating our genetics. In my case, I think the latter is probably more true. Every time I'm up there with a woman, a human female. And usually it's the same one. Over the years, it's always been the same one. It's really bizarre.
So are the two of you together or
We
separate?
are together. We're together.
Okay. And
We're
you're
side by side, and we're being led into this other vehicle or room. Or
okay.
after they did whatever it was that they were doing, checking us out or whatever, they brought me and this woman into this room.
And then what happens next as you're taken into that room?
We're just sitting there, and then all these little kids. I don't know if they're kids. They're like little. They kind of look like kids.
Mm-hmm.
All these kids come up, and the lady's like starting to wake up, and she looks real happy. And she starts hugging them,
Mm-hmm.
and then she looks at me, and I look at her, and then we're both really confused. And they're just these kids, and they
What
come
is-
hug my leg and hold my hand. And there were seven children altogether. There were varying ages, varying sizes, varying, some of them looked more human, some of them looked less human, some of them had hair, some of them didn't. And I'm looking at these children, and I'll never forget. Every single time I talk about this, this one little girl comes up to me and hugs my leg. And I'm looking down at this beautiful little child hugging my leg, and I realize that this kid looks like me, and she's beautiful. But she's different because it's all about the eyes. She has these huge, oversized, almond-shaped, slanted, so blue they're almost violet eyes. Beautiful blonde hair, and she's just clinging onto my leg like, please don't let me go. I don't want to leave them behind.
You don't want to leave who behind?
The babies.
The babies? What are you feeling right now besides the fact that you don't want to leave them?
They're crying.
They're crying? What tells you that they're crying?
I can see them crying. They're reaching for me, and they're making me go.
Mm-hmm. The children are making you go?
No. They're taking me away from them.
Sam basically was reliving his experiences. And it wasn't even about remembering. And to sit there and watch as he physically experienced the pain inflicted on him was very hard. It was just heartbreaking to watch. The memories he did have of his abductions and the woman that he remembered seeing her, he knew what she looked like, what she sounded like, was hard for me. But during these regressions, it all just came really, it became a reality for me.
They kept looking at her, and Lisa watched me, looking at her. She goes, what's up? And I said, I know her from somewhere. I mean, I don't know where I know her from somewhere. And then it hit me like a lead balloon, like a ton of bricks. She was the woman I was with all this time. Every time I was taken, it was the same woman. And we became very close friends. And it got to a point where it was kind of hard for Lisa because we had this weird connection, me and Victoria, this bizarre, unnatural connection.
I was so wrapped up in the case and learning about it and learning what my role was in it and experiencing so many things around me that I wasn't focused on Lisa's feelings.
When he found Victoria, that was really, really, really hard for me to deal with because I knew she was real, I knew she existed, and in some ways I prayed that he never found her. Because for 6 years, I worried what would happen to me. As his wife. And then when it happened, all my fears started to materialize. It was like this new courtship. It reminded me very much of when Stan and I met. The hours of conversations, and they had a connection via 7 children that Stan and I didn't have.
There were some instances where Stan and I would have be in a deep conversation, and it's like she couldn't put a wedge through us because we were so focused on this scenario that we were involved in and trying to learn more about it. So I think there was jealousy, but it stemmed from probably just knowing that Stan had had experiences with this woman, me, up there.
Victoria and I mean, we had some rough spots where my jealousy and my anger was very evident to anyone in that house. We'd get together and the two of them would disappear and I would flip out. I mean, I would just be furious because when I voiced my concern, it's, oh, you're imagining it. It's like, don't put it off that I'm imagining anything. I see what's going on in my house and I'm not okay with it.
I don't know how I would have acted, but she always held herself in complete poise in class. And I mean, there were a couple instances where she'd, get, you could tell she was hurt or bothered, especially if he and I would go off to the side and be in this deep conversation and she'd be looking for him and we're sitting out in the front yard talking.
And then I started understanding, not liking it obviously, but understanding that here's these two people that were put together in these terrifying experiences. And they needed each other to figure out what had happened. I just wanted them to do it around everybody else, not so closed off. So my jealousy wasn't